going on? What's going on? It is C Talk. I'm gonna let some people get in the room real quick. We got a very interesting conversation. This conversation was inspired by I'm just gonna go ahead and disclose. This conversation was inspired by the Drink Champs interview that I saw with Kanye, aka Ye. Did any of y'all check that out?
How could we miss it?
So, Bobby, you checked it out. What about Precious and Trisha? Did y'all check that out?
Wait.
No, y'all didn't check it out, man. It is such an interesting and like it's so packed full of topics. You know what I'm saying? Sitting down and watching that part 1 and part 2, you can walk away and be like, dang, you know what I'm saying? What should be the focus? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of it was Kanye just really talking about his wealth and a lot of name dropping. And he name dropped a lot of very wealthy white men. That's one observation that I had. You know, whether it be Donald Trump, whether it be Walt Disney, whether it be Elon Musk. Now, pardon self, I know Elon Musk might be white presenting. He might not be ethnically white. I don't know, but to me, I'm just saying. I'm just trying to be, scholarly. He presents as a white man. You know what I'm saying? To me, he's worth like what $266 million, $1 billion. So, it was just interesting to hear, and then I just came up with the topic. It's like, you got a lot of noise going on. Someone got it. Bobby, you got to mute yourself, man. It sounds like the SWAT team coming through your house over there, brother. But no, it made me think about what should be the focus. Because in one moment he was talking about how he's a billionaire and whatnot. Another moment he was talking about how well he didn't read or count. And it didn't really matter, basically, because he's a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? And I had that conversation with a community member some years ago. I was asking him about different books that he read and stuff like that. And he was like, he had a good point. He's like, well, I can't feed my children books. I can't feed the community books. You know what I mean? And I was like, I thought that was an interesting answer and whatnot. But I just wanted to bring that topic. If we could just tag some people, let's get some people in the room and whatnot. I wanted to ask y'all the question. It's like, what exactly should be our focus as, you know what I'm saying, as the Black community? Should it be financial capital gain, you know what I'm saying, to like ascribe to be like a Kanye West? Should it be cultural literacy where you're learning cultural traditions and value systems that are connected to your culture as Black people? Or should it just be mental wellness, mental health? You know what I'm saying? I think that one way to look at it legitimately is that we wouldn't need so much policing and so much supervision from, you know what I'm saying, people who do not protect our interests and whatnot, if we had enough people who had some mental health and some mental wellness to really address our historical trauma. So I wanted to just tag some people, get some people in the room and whatnot, and then just ask y'all the question, like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when y'all talking about like the next steps for the Black community? Financial capital gain, cultural literacy, or mental wellness? What y'all think? What you think, Trisha?
I think mental wellness, or under the umbrella of health, all of those things should be our focus, because without mental wellness, you can't really achieve or sustain the other two in terms of what cultural literacy or financial well-being, because it's core to everything else. So I think it's something that we should focus on or prioritize.
What you think, Precious? I know you were saying you were saying a mouthful. It made some points before we got on.
Yeah, the way I'm looking at it, I look at what is really hurting us the most. Is it money? Is it our education that's hurting us, or is it our mental health? And I just, as I said, behind the scenes, I was saying, just sitting back looking at what is happening with our community, it seems that mental health is a really, really, really big one because I think a lot of us are still traumatized. I think many of us are still in a place of hurt that even if they did have money, that money is still not resolving what's going on up here. And I feel what peer really who controls how your life really truly ends up in a sense. Like we can't control our external factors all the time, but we damn sure got control of what we do or what kind of decisions we make for ourselves in our livelihood. We do play some sort of role in that. And just really just looking at things as a whole spectrum, while financial can heal a lot of problems because a lot of people problem is probably due to finances. But as we see with Kanye West, who do got plenty of money, he still has problems up
Mhm.
here.
Hmm.
So we have to think: does money truly trump our mental health? Does it even treat that? So I'm gonna say I think mental probably may need to be number one.
Well, with a person who's 9 billion strong, though, my pushback would be if he's 6 to 9 billion dollars strong, and we're questioning his mental health or whatnot, wouldn't it be good for him to be a financial backer or a venture capitalist, and then let some other people who have better mental, health than him or mental wellness, let them handle that department? But in today's crass consumer capitalist economy, having someone with that amount of monetary resources is going to be very, very valuable. You know what I'm saying? In what we are trying to do, as we need to push force different things, like specifically, really, like if we wanted to make moves, like politically, you know, let's look at terms of like lobbying, right? We're not going to really be able to do anything if we ain't got no money, because lobbying is a big piece if you want to go that route of using political leverage to get bills and laws and whatnot and certain policies, you know what I'm saying, pass, you know what I'm saying, to improve the living conditions, you know what I'm saying, for the Black community. Bobby, man, you in the dark, man. What's going on, brother? What you think?
So I think it's an interesting question. I think one of the reasons why Black Lives Matter and some of these other organizations that have emphasized Marxism or non-capitalist philosophies have struggled with moderate Black people is because, like you said, we are in a capitalist economy, right? And so anybody who's not accumulating resources is like literally falling behind. So it's really hard for me to answer the question without saying that the accumulation of resources is important, because it's also the case that you can't even take care of your mental health without resources. And then I look at somebody like Robert Johnson, who showed up at Morehouse, delivered a commencement speech, and paid off everybody's student debt. And I'm like, wow, that is one way to advance people financially and educationally. Because if everybody went to college for free, right? If college is truly this tool for equity and tool for advancing Black people out of poverty, then going to school for free and having somebody with enough resources to essentially fund entire swaths of people, of course, that's extremely powerful. I think that's one of the reasons why we take issue with someone like Kanye, because we go, you have all these resources, and what are you doing with them for the people, right? So I think that the accumulation of resources is extremely important, especially when the differentiation between poverty and racism is so hard to find. Because pretty much any time we see somebody who's struggling with poverty, we can also point to systemic racism that they're struggling or that they're trying to overcome. And so that's the reason why I think the financial aspect of this is so important. And it's hard to choose between social welfare, mental health, and financial resources when the line between them is so thin. Because if you don't have money, you can't address your problems. And your problems can also come from not having money. So really difficult question to answer. But I would just say that we cannot leave the finances behind if we choose to focus on other things.
Yeah, to add on to what you said, I think a lot of our just of how we've been conditioned here in America, a lot of our mental wellness is connected to the lack of money. And I would argue here in America, I know that they say, is it upwards of 50%? I haven't checked it recently, but it's up there. It's over 30, 40%. I'm willing to bet, you know what I'm saying, that the cause of a lot of problems, if not divorce, is because of money. Is the kind of money. And then when we got people who are choosing who they are going to spend their lives with and create families based on the income that the other person has, which can unfortunately get people in relationships that are not good for their mental health and their physical safety, because they chose that person because that was the person that was most compatible for them, not emotionally or whatnot, but just because they, made enough money for them to make a living. So when we start choosing who, we choose as our mates and our significant others and who we want to create families with, that has a huge impact on our mental wellness. And so it makes us really think about the value, no pun intended, of you know what I'm saying, you know, financial capital gain, in all this. Now, what do you think about the uh the theory that, the Black community will be doing a lot better and wouldn't have so many problems if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't have resources? I know Precious brought that up. I want to talk about that the impoverished communities have so many problems because they don't have resources and they lack money. And if they had money and they had resources, that they would, perform better, on a societal level. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I think I said that for the yeah. The issues with in poverty areas is lack of resource and money, because people are trying to find ways to get out this situation. So that's when people will do things like, unfortunately, sell drugs, or they get involved in other illegal matters just to generate that money, because they may not have the education to go to school, or they think they don't have the education or intellect to go to school, or whatever is the I guess what people like to call the safe route of maintaining and building wealth for themselves and their family. So yeah, in private, yes, the lack of money oftentimes do be the cause or the root cause, I guess you could say. Because if you don't have money to do anything, quite naturally that will lead somebody to steal something, such as food, for instance. They will
Mhm.
steal for that. They will actually steal, but
Does that
at the
create
same,
does that
uh,
create the stigma, the profile, and the stereotype that poor people, what I'm saying, are just prone to steal though? Do you think it
not
creates
necessarily,
profile?
but we live in a country that being poor is somewhat of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of live in that sort of era that homeless people, whatever, do not get treated with the same level of someone who do got money or
Mm-hmm.
who is well off.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing, but I will say yes, financial gain is an important one. I'm not disregarding that, but I do feel with us Black people, I think our mental wealth is what's destroying us, or at least killing us in some sense, in a sense.
Right, right. I'm
That's why
looking at
I'm
the
getting
comment.
at.
I'm looking at the comments. Lou Bolar Jr. said, "Knowledge itself." That would fit into the category of cultural literacy. And I'm just curious of, because we haven't talked about that yet. Um, why, if you had to argue that perspective, why would you think that would be a good perspective and that would be a good move for the Black community to focus on, like, cultural literacy and whatnot, and knowledge itself, learning about their history, who we are as Black people, and just embellishing those cultural traditions and whatnot.
I would say that the importance of learning that is to avoid making the same mistakes that have been done in the past. This is not to say our people did a bad code. Look where we at. Now, obviously, they did some moves that actually was beneficial, but we should also study what has happened to us to avoid whatever they did. We could find ways to improvise it even better. Like we did have like Black Wall Street. Nowadays, they're trying to recreate that. At least I think right now they got one trying to build in Atlanta right now, but I'm not sure when that's
Yeah.
opening up. But what I'm trying to say is learning about who you are and where you come from kind of helps repeat history, not repeating itself, at least among us. We can't really talk about people, unfortunately, on the outside, but we damn sure can start from the inside of that.
Yeah. What you think, Trisha?
This is, and my son is watching, my oldest son, one of the conversations that I continue to have with him because I've told him things like your obsession with money leads to the destruction of your mental health. You can't buy your way into whiteness. So your obsession with accumulating things to appear like you're a white man, that's not going to change the fact that you're still Black, and to be proud of your culture and what you do have and not see not having money as a deficit or money to the level of the white people that are around him of that generational wealth. So I think cultural literacy would probably be my second, and financial capital gain at the end, because like you were saying, the example of like Tulsa, Black Wall Street, they had resources, but look what happened in the end. Because I think at a certain point we're allowed to be inward rich, I won't say, but not to ascend to other levels. And then also, I mean, even when you're talking about people like Kanye, with him having I hate to say it's his money. So technically, in a capitalist society, he has no responsibility to give his money to us to build anything if he doesn't have that cultural literacy piece. Because unfortunately, other billionaires and trillionaires, I guess, no one's going up to them and saying, oh, you have a responsibility to, why just because he's Black, he has to have a responsibility. But if he has that cultural literacy piece, he would understand why he has that responsibility versus us just saying, well, you have a responsibility to us.
Yeah, that's a great point. Go ahead, Precious.
You know what? That just reminds me of someone said, I saw it on TikTok. TikTok's my favorite playground nowadays. And someone has said that Black people lack a collective mindset compared to other ethnicities. We think more, it could be due to America. It could be an American thing that could be due to it, that many of us think individualistically instead of as a collective. So I think while we may have Black people who do have the means to help other Black people, especially those in poverty, if they don't think of that type of collective, think of the collective to help to circulate that money to build others up. Where we really going with that? Yeah, he got money, and yes, he is obligated and entitled to his own money that he earned or she earned. I'm not going to knock them for that, but if they don't have that collective mindset and they're more individual mindset, what are we really accomplishing in terms of financial gain?
And I even think on the microcosm, I know there were two entertainers a couple of weeks ago, Black entertainers, was it Shaquille O'Neal? And well, saying that, even in terms of their family, he's not worried about financial security for his own family. And I'm thinking, if he doesn't care about his own family, why would we think he's going to care about all of us as a collective? And unfortunately, I think that happens when you ascend to a certain level of having a lot of money. They're very vocal about the fact that I'm not helping them. So I think that's a message to the rest of us. If he's not helping the people he created, why would you think that they're going to do something for the rest of us?
That is a very good point. I remember that too. I forgot all about that, but you are absolutely correct.
I saw that tagline. I saw the headline saying, "My money is my money and not my children's money." I didn't read the article though. I understand the concept. I understand the concept from a distance, and even though I didn't read the article, but I understand it from me raising my children or our children, I should say, co-raising, is that don't expect that you automatically are going to be endowed, or you have this sense of entitlement, especially for my young men, because you already come in this with a lot of privilege as being male and whatnot, and being able-bodied, that sometimes, especially my youngest one, he just thinks that things just get given to him. And I want to show them that they have to work for their money. They have to work for not only their money, but even their social credit that they achieve. Like you know, you earn it by being a good person, by working hard, a strong work ethic. So I understand that from a distance, but at the same time, my home is their home as long as they're willing to support the healthiness of this home. I'm not going to sit there and say, I pay the bills around here. You need to get out of my house and you need to find somewhere else to live once you get, able-bodied and old enough to do so. As long as I have a room open, I have floor space, and I have food in my refrigerator, all those things belong to you too, with a certain level of boundaries. And also, if I have money, you know what I'm saying? If I have money, then my money is your money. It is. That's why I have life insurance. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I never read the article, because I knew it had a little bit of shock into it, because I know a person like him is going to have life insurance. I know he's taking care of his family. So I was like,
Right.
I know there's like better time spent somewhere else, because if you have life insurance and if something happens to you, if your kids get like $1.5 million or something like that, then yeah, your money is their money. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. But I like the fact that Trisha said like her second one will be cultural literacy. And I'm torn between all three, just depending on where you're at in your life, because I was really, really distracted and irritated. I mean, it's his life, it's his name drops, it's his references. But I was tired of hearing Kanye, aka Ye, just reference all these wealthy white men. And I think that comes from that lack of cultural literacy. Like, why aren't any of your references Black people that helped the community, other than Larry Hoover Sr.? And that's still kind of up for grabs. He was once the leader of the BGDs, and he's trying to, they call him the old man. He's trying to use his money and his power and his privilege and political power to free him. They're calling Larry Hoover a political prisoner. I mean, which there is some credence to it, but there's also a lot of credence and merit to that. He dealt with some street aspects, some criminal, activity that we can say that hurt him, and will hurt people close to him. You know what I'm saying? And that's which really fortified, his time in prison. I haven't really looked at their campaign to say if he's innocent of all those charges. But last time I checked, that's the reason why he's in prison, is because of drug charges. So my point of it is, it's like, how do you put your people in the Black community in the forefront if you don't have that cultural literacy? And I feel like out of those cultural literacy components comes your value system. It's like, no matter how much money I make, I have no right to treat this person the way I am treating, them. And there's a lot of elitism that comes out from Kanye West that I feel comes out of a lot of people with money. Is because they feel like the closer they get to whiteness in terms of money means that they have the same power and leverage and the right and legitimacy to treat us like white people.
Well, Kanye actually said during that interview that because he had 80 accounts and because he had $9 billion, that made him a leader. And that was probably the one thing from the interview that I was most disgusted by, because it made me understand how he did align himself with Donald Trump. It was this idea of my accumulation of resources makes me qualified to lead. But again, from a cultural standpoint, there's plenty of people who have money that we do not care for. There's plenty of people who have money that we would never take advice from. There's plenty of people that have money that we would never put in front of us and say we're going to follow that person. And when we talk about Western values or European values, this accumulation of wealth is obviously high on the totem pole for them. And, you know, to somebody's point, they would say, wow, you really bought into that if you believe that you're a leader of all Black entertainers simply because you have more capital. So I thought that was pretty revealing in terms of what Trisha was saying about proximity to whiteness. But also, I don't know if some of the decisions like that Shaq was talking about, where he says, my wealth is my wealth, doesn't trickle down into some of the stuff culturally that we experience where people say, when you turn 18, you got to go. You got to get out of my house. But what we know is that families that have wealth generationally, they don't do that. They don't kick people out and force them to start paying bills before they can afford it, right? Because the easiest way to build credit would be to have an income and have no debt and use your credit card and pay it off, right? Or make payments over time. And we know that white people do that with their children. We know that Asian people do that. We know that other cultures do that, but Black people don't. Or not, or I shouldn't say that. Some Black people don't, or there's enough of us that know that it doesn't happen culturally that I'm willing to make that generalization. And so, like, these types of cultural decisions that we make are definitely signs of acting out of desperation, because if you have no resources and your child turns 18, your first thought is this is their first opportunity to support themselves. Oh my God, I don't have to pay for them anymore. They got to go. But I don't know that that happens if you're not in a desperate economic situation. And that's the reason why I was saying initially, I don't think that we can ever do an analysis of poverty without, or analysis of racism without an analysis of poverty. And you can't do it vice versa. And so all the decisions that we make culturally, all of the values that we have, they basically stem from responses to white supremacy. They stem from responses to systemic racism and the kicking people out of the house, the accumulation of wealth to the detriment of your peers that are like you, because you know you're not used to having the resources and you feel like you have to stack and stack and stack to the detriment of everybody else. I mean, that all says PTSD, or as you would say, post-traumatic slave syndrome.
And it's crazy. Thanks for that. To add on to what you're saying, it's like, imagine how policies and laws, feel me, contribute to how we view our family members and love them. And one thing in particular is the whole concept of you got to get out of my house. Now, I see this a lot in the field of education and whatnot. I see that as when people keep people in their household so they can get money from the government, or they, at one point, I don't know if it's still welfare law still, but they, you know, remove people from the household, you know what I'm saying, to get financial business benefits from the government. There was a time where I know welfare wouldn't give you a certain amount of money, you know what I'm saying, if you had, another person in the household that's earning, income, you know what I'm saying. And I've seen people take on kids and children, I should say, so they can get some kind of financial gain through the foster care system, or get some of their check and whatnot. That's something that very common that happens. Also, people, claiming people on their taxes and whatnot, and as dependents and whatnot. So a lot of how we treat each other and how we relate to each other, even love each other, has to do with financial gain, or not having it and whatnot. So I did want to get to some of the comments and stuff. I always find it interesting when I asked people to focus on one comment, you know what I'm saying, and then or focus on one thing, and then they say we can do all at the same time. And it's like, okay, if we could do all at the same time, then we probably would be doing it, and we're not. We seem to focus in a lot of our communities in our household on one. We focus on one. So let's just answer that question. It's just like, what do we usually focus on? And I think a lot of us really focus on how can we get that bag?
Yeah.
like
That's a
Trisha
fact.
said, because that decreases or increases our proximity to whiteness.
Mhm.
And that's what we're trying to so hard, to be, because we see that there is a better life. That's what we see. Now, what kind of eyes we're using to see that? Are we using a trained eye? Are we using cultural lenses? It just depends. But a lot of us see a better life when we're in proximity to whiteness, whether it's moving into a white neighborhood, whether it's going to a white school, whether it's dressing like, talking like, quote unquote, white people. We put on our white. That's an ongoing joke. That's the epitome of code switching.
Mhm.
Um,
It reminds me. Oh, have you ever seen that video from the 50s? It's like a show on how to sell to the Black consumer. And it shows that, I think the narrator literally says, and it's from the 50s, that with Black consumers, they really just want someone to be nice to them. And so just be nice and they'll keep coming back, and they're willing to spend more than other people. It's that back then, and even I still think today, that even if it's just a temporary proximity to whiteness of buying things that you can't afford, that we like that engagement. And that's also probably the reason why they, even wealthy celebrities, they'll lose their minds if they're still treated like a Black person when they're at, Gucci or somewhere buying something. And like when Oprah went to shop somewhere and was thrown, like, oh my goodness, you mean even with my money, I'm still being treated like everyone else? Because you're expecting that this is my opportunity for my proximity to whiteness, because you're going to love my money, right? You're going to love that, but still, like, you're still Black. And that's why they get so outraged. Like, we're supposed to do something about that. And you're like, well, we've got a million other things going on, but I'm glad that's your one time that you were reminded that you were Black.
And I want to, yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point, because it kind of like, it connects to what I wanted to say. It's like I have to be always aware again of my privilege. Like, for me, the most important thing for me in this whole thing, I would say, I would agree, I think it's mental wellness. I will. But I have to also remember that has a lot to do with my privilege, because I make good money. I live in a place where, what I'm saying, I feel safe. And what's the other thing? Sorry. Oh, just culturally, I feel like I'm on point. Like, my whole thing of raising our children, saying co-raising our children and being around the people I am around, our cultural literacy and our cultural awareness is pretty much in the same lane. It's not like I'm around a whole bunch of people that's like dramatically different to me. And I can also choose to not be around them if they were. You understand what I'm saying? That's a lot of privilege that I can move, but a lot of that privilege comes with me and my age and my experience and having to go through certain things and whatnot. That has a lot to do with my privilege too. If I didn't have all those things, who knows? My number one focus might be, it might be financial capital gain. It might be, if I didn't have those other things. Because maybe me getting more money will give me the resources to go travel, to be around those other people, or me to gain admission into certain circles that have those people who have more cultural literacy than me, that have better mental wellness. A lot of Black people are able to get new aspects and new visions on life and how to behave, because they had the money to be around a whole different circle of people. And they use money to do that. You know what I'm saying? If you talk to, like, a perfect example of someone like Russell Simmons, he talks about, in his books and stuff, how he was just growing up, in the inner city, in the poor economic, sections of New York, where, he was like, doing drugs and involved in all this other stuff. And but it's when he got financial capital gain, you know what I'm saying, that he was able to be like, you know, kind of like this yogi now, you know what I'm saying? And now he's got this mental wellness. Now he's a vegan, you know what I'm saying? But it was money that brought him into those circles. Some of us need money to bring us into those circles. Some people don't. I'm glad that I was one of the people that didn't need money, but I will say my ability to earn more money and save more money has really fed my appetite for travel. But that also has to do with your priorities too. If you don't have the money to travel, if you have that cultural literacy to put you in circles around people and then be around like cooperative economics, you can make that a priority. I know people who make a lot less than me, you know what I'm saying, and make it a point to go to Africa like every year because that's their priority. And they have pretty solid mental wellness because of that, because they're able to do what they wanted to do. They're accomplishing their goals and they're being around people who are like-minded and support, you know what I'm saying, um, you know, where they are in life and where they want to be in life. Some people with money don't even have a good support group around them. You know what I'm saying?
So I feel like Killer Mike talked about this a little bit when he talked about public schools, and he was saying that one of the real unfortunate things is that the most successful Black people intentionally don't put their children in public schools with other poor Black people, and he was saying that it's sort of there's different levels of cultural literacy, but he was saying that it was widening the gap between Black middle class, Black upper class, and Black lower class. And it's sort of like you were saying, there's this conscious decision that some of us can make because of resources to put ourselves in some environments and not others. But it's hard to imagine a scenario where if you did have the resources to put your child, for example, in a better school, and that better school just so happened, of course it's intentional, but just so happened to not have students like him there or her there, it would be hard to imagine that you wouldn't do that. It would require you to basically say, I'm going to raise the quality of this other school by keeping my child there, potentially to my child's own detriment. And it's really difficult to imagine that. Whereas cooperative economics, you at least get your money back. But, educating your child, for example, it's so nobody's willing to take that risk. Nobody's willing to say, my child will be the reason that school is improved because I'm going to participate in the PTA, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the social capital aspect of this, where because you can select out of certain environments, everybody else is robbed of your literacy, like you were saying, Logic, of your abilities, because you're like, yeah, I could help them, but my responsibility is to my children, and that's a difficult one to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get to this. I think it's Jay Ron. He says, thanks for the tag. I think we should focus on mental wellness because us as Black people don't take mental health seriously. There are so many Black people who are suffering from depression, but we're conditioned to believe that it's not a real thing or we have to toughen up. I think that attitude comes from older generations passing it down to the current generations. It's an ongoing cycle. The problem is that we face so much racial trauma that we suppress our emotional pain and internalize it. What y'all think about that statement that we should concentrate on because we don't care enough about mental health?
That's actually a true statement. And by the way, that's my homie right there. Me and him have good discussions like this all the time. But yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about a little earlier. I said I think that's really what's effing us up in the long run. Yeah, financial gain definitely could be a plus. I am not doubting that by any means. I'm like, even myself is kind of speaking from a place of privilege because I'm technically am quite well, although I'm a single person, I'm technically well off compared to others. But that mental health ultimately, yeah,
Yeah. I
that
wonder
will always be lingering.
I wonder about the words that we don't care about it. I wonder
I
if
don't,
it's
yeah.
go ahead, Trisha.
Yeah, that's the part that I don't agree with. I think that we are traumatized people that are the children of traumatized people who are the children of traumatized people. So first, I would not blame older generations for not being able to help us work through this or to concentrate on mental health. You have to realize those of us that are descendants of enslaved people, they were pretty much given like religion as their only escape. One, I won't even say their day off, but when they weren't working, so they were given religion as a solution. You have to understand your enslavers weren't worried about your mental health or the um, people that they were creating, what kind of mental health issues they would have. So you can't expect that there at no point there's been a conscious intervention to help any of our ancestors or even our parents interact with us so that we can focus on mental health. So I wouldn't blame older generations. I think that for too often we've used religion as a replacement for it. Or I know, like even with my family from New Orleans, they would just say, "Oh, so and so's touched," or "There's just something wrong with them," not realizing. Then later on, when you realize and talk about all the like adverse childhood experiences they've had, and now they're an adult and they've never addressed it. So I think we all need to intervene and focus on it. But then again, unfortunately, the most of the mental health providers that are available, the few that are like us or potentially could understand and help us, there's so few of them that they're probably overburdened as well. So yeah, I just wouldn't. I think we have to be careful in blaming the generations that came before us, only because we have to take into consideration what they were, raised dealing with.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's like,
I agree with that. And I think what he meant, but I don't think he mean like literally we don't give a damn. It's just that many of them truly do think that mental wellness or mental health don't exist. I think nowadays we're starting to unpack that a bit leaf by leaf, but there are those who still don't think that black people suffer from mental illness or any mental health issue. Therefore, they don't give a damn about it. That's really what he's saying. And there is some
Mhm.
level of truth. Like we tell people all the time about the issues that's going on in our community, and they will literally deflect that or gaslight it in some shape or form. So if that's not a form of people not understanding the impact of mental health, I don't know what is. And Bobby made up a very good point about children in education, and one of them how some black parents do want their children to go to all white schools or whatever, which I find so interesting because a lot of those parents who does that oftentimes work for a company where they continue to get passed up by the white person who gets us hired for the job above them.
yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different topic, and that's a really good
That is
one.
that is a different topic. But it just remember when he
That's
said that,
from a person who went to both public and private schools. And then one of our children went to a private school at one point, and the other two, and but they all finished in public schools, and all three of my children went to the same school that I was an educator or a principal at. That's a very interesting conversation because I saw benefit in both the public and private schools as a teacher with my 1 year that I did there, and then as a student with my 2 years there at O'Day. And then Bobby went to O'Day also, so that'll be an interesting
Hmm.
conversation. But getting back to uh, the wealthy part. I'm looking at some of these comments, and it's just like there was one comment that was made right here by Amanda. She says, "When I hang around educated Black people with money, I get a whole new, refreshing mindset on life. I feel motivated." And it would be interesting to hear more about that and unpack that. And I think what happens a lot of times, and the reason why people say money is because we think that when Black people have money, that they automatically got it figured out. Like they're doing something right. You feel me? Like even on the most like street level, feel me? Like some people's role models and people that they look up to, just period, are people who are doing criminal things to obtain their money. Like you hear a lot of black males saying, "Oh, I looked up to the pimps, the drug dealers." You know what I'm saying? I looked up to the athletes. I look up to the rappers who are making money. And we think that because they were able to get money, that they got something figured out. But for me, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous, I'm not trying to discredit any black person from who makes a lot of money. I think that is a testament, especially when we look at the economic climate in America. To pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and however you make money. What we have to remember is your net worth and your monetary value in this economic system is what you are worth and valued according to white people. We got to understand that the value of the dollar is determined by the stock exchange. Okay. So when I say that I'm, worth six figures, that's my worth according to white people. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you are a business owner, an independent business owner by yourself, that's a different conversation. You know what I'm saying? That's your worth to yourself, and also what your people who are consuming your product, whatever it may be, are giving you money. But if your main money is coming from white investors and white people and a clientele that has been generated by white administrators, therefore, if they gave you the money, then guess what? The reversal is they can take it away. They can. That's called HR. You know what I'm saying? It's called rules. It's called like a contract. And I remember in an interview, Kanye was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get canceled. I'm gonna get fired, and I might be homeless for 4 or 5 years because of this interview." So that let me know, and should have let a lot of other people know, that they do have the capability of taking that stuff away. They really do. And I just really think that your value, when we look up what is someone's net worth, that's how much they're worth to white people. That's how much money you're making, because every single time that someone's making a salary, if we look like an athlete, if they're making millions of dollars, just think how much the owners are making. That's the worth and the value that the people who own their talent are putting a price on them. I mean, and that's just facts. That's facts of the matter.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, because we live in a society that we value ourselves based off how much money we make or how much money we have. Many people tend to value themselves based off of that. So yes, absolutely what you said. And another thing I noticed with black people, and I've said this many times on my own page, we got to stop equating wealth with intelligence. Just because they're wealthy don't necessarily mean that they're smart.
Exactly.
I think I've been saying that little tale for the last 4 or 5 years now, and I'm tired of fucking saying it. But we got to stop doing that.
What I've been saying lately is just because what someone says makes sense doesn't mean that they make sense. Like I'm listening to Kanye, and what comes out of his mouth literally makes sense, dollars and cents. It really does. Like that's why, when people go viral and you got people like in the millions watching it, it literally generates income. But that doesn't mean what he's saying is actually makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, just because someone has money, then all of a sudden we want to go, ooh. And I think a lot of times we do that because we don't want to get on the bad side of someone who makes money. We get that from our employer. You know what I'm saying? We're trained to condition. It's like, yeah, I'm not really going to say this because my employer might not pay me. I'm not going to say this at work. I'm going to wait when I'm in a safe place behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of times when people make a lot of money, we automatically think they're actually good at something too. Like they're good at what they do. Now, in the example of Kanye, I don't mean to pick on the brother, but I just think he's a fascinating individual. And like, I really think it's really interesting why people are just so like call him a genius and this time. I'm like, really? Like a musical genius, I give him that. He's definitely good at that. I think that the monetary value, I think that the monetary value that's put on him definitely says, okay, yeah, he's a genius when it comes to that. But I also know a lot of musicians that are just as good as him, is better than that, should be making just as much money as him too. But what I'm saying is, I don't know if he's a good businessman. I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I don't like his clothing. I don't think a lot of people do. But those shoes they do sell. But do they sell because
it's Kanye West?
Cool.
Yeah,
Right.
it's Kanye West, and they want his money. So they think buying a piece of him, they get a piece of his wealth.
Exactly.
That's really what it is.
And it's like his hairstyle. You know what I'm saying? And I see a lot of people doing this stuff. Like, I don't think that's a tight hairstyle. I got a cousin that cuts hair and it looks beautiful. It looks like he's putting hieroglyphics on the side of people's heads. And Kanye just looks like someone just like messed up on his hair. But he's like, oh, this is the new thing. I'm calling it the Britney. And everyone's like, oh, that's genius. How? How's that genius? This looks like a really bad haircut. Looks like someone gave him a haircut in the dark. And then lined him up. But somehow we think that he's doing something right because what he does, his net worth makes him worth over $1 billion. And Hazana says Kanye thinks on intellectually on a different level. Yeah, but I don't know if that's like, what is that?
I would like to see a breakdown of that. Maybe.
Yeah, he definitely does. I mean, but he also says a lot of stuff that I've already heard before. It doesn't really. He doesn't.
He's definitely an interesting individual. He's a character. That's what we like to call him. He's a character. That's the name I'm gonna give. He's a character.
Yeah. I mean, to me, a lot of people, I've heard people say, "Oh, he's deep" and stuff. I'm like, I really don't hear anything that deep that he's saying. Like, when someone gets on a mic and a lot of their platform is anti-abortion, right? And they say things like, 50%, you know what I'm saying, of deaths in the Black community come out of abortion. Like, to me, like, I've heard this whole argument before that us, having abortions, it's a conservative, talking point, Republican talking point. Us having an abortion is destroying the Black community and we're killing people. Well, I think we never ever had a problem of reproducing. Reproducing isn't a problem. We need to start taking care of the children that we're actually producing. And not only taking care of them, making sure they have mental wellness. And you know what I'm saying? And that they're growing up to be good people. We've never ever had a problem of reproducing. It's never been a problem.
I'm trying to figure out why they care about something that never was born, but you don't give a damn the one that's walking around here in the foster care.
Exactly. Right. And that's what, and I will give him props. That's why he was saying, and I have been saying this argument, behind behind the scenes. And I'm glad he finally said, well, that's why he said he wants to put some money towards, towards orphanages. I was like, okay, that's a step. Let's see if that pans out, though. Let's see if that pans out. Let's see if it just stays on the thinking table, if it actually makes it off the thinking table, and then you actually start taking care of, children who are orphaned. But also this, why don't you take some of that $1 billion? This is next level thinking, and start giving incentives to people who actually have those babies. Because a lot of people aren't having babies because they don't want to born them into conditions that are not good for them. They don't want to born a child into conditions of illiteracy, poor economic outcomes, where, you know what I'm saying, they can be killed by another person, where the homicide rate is very, very high. So let's change the conditions that we're borning children in. Use some of that $1 billion. Take some of that $1 billion and let me see you use your city as a project first. Let me see you fix Chicago first. No,
You're
I'm
not doing
serious.
that.
I'm serious.
I'm
With
with you.
with $1 billion, I think it's possible. But you're going to need someone who's thinking on that level to fix a city and not just name brand drop and name the peers that you hang out with. Like, I was hanging out with this designer. I was hanging out with Trump. I was hanging out with Elon Musk. These are the people I call my peers. Okay, that's not what Chicago needs. Chicago don't need that. Chicago needs mental wellness in those communities. It needs a lot of resources. But you know, he says, you know, he wants to start his own community, I think in Wyoming. And I seen the documentary Wild Wild Country. He better be careful, because that'll get him. They'll be calling him a cult leader in a minute. You know what I'm saying? And the FBI will thinking it's Waco, Texas. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But I would really like to see him, you know, put some money towards Chicago. I think if anyone can quote unquote fix Chicago, then I would call them a genius, and I would say whatever model you used, that should be the focus for many communities, Black communities in the United States. I mean, I think actually Chicago should be a pilot city. I think the top 10 cities who have the highest mortality rates, you know what I'm saying, of Black communities and poverty, those should all be pilot cities of what happened, of what should be done, and what kind of policies and what kind of, you know, laws and what kind of procedures and processes should be done, you know what I'm saying, on a national level. However, I don't think they're doing that, because I just don't think they care enough about us. Because Black people in Black communities living in poverty and struggling, supports the system to keep the rich richer and the poor poorer. So I don't know.
And I've always felt that many Black celebrities who thinks like Kanye West tugs at the emotional strains of poor Black people to increase their capital. That's why they flaunt that type of stuff. Like, I'm with this design, or I'm dropping this album, or I'm dropping this label, or I'm dropping this brand. And that we got to build wealth. Like Diddy's another mother ever who do the same thing. And I said, I wish all Black people caught on to that, because I've been caught on to it. They'll tug at your emotional string. We need to build businesses. However, come time the Grammy Awards, every last one of them Black celebrities went straight to the white journalists, but not the 10 Blacks that's on the red carpet. So do they really want to build Black wealth among us, or they want to trick us into thinking to invest in them and they get richer while we still stay where we at?
Yeah.
Isn't that their audience space, though?
You say that again, Trisha?
Isn't that their one of their largest audience bases? The white teen, white males are their big, so they of course would run to them, because it's all about money. If they had, you know, that cultural lens, but it's about money, and that's where they're getting their money from.
Yeah. It will really be nice if venture capitalists, or alpha, I call them alpha capitalists, like Kanye, the Diddy's, these Black people with a lot of money, stayed in their lane and be like, I'm a financial leader. I got money, and I'm going to go recruit someone who has a better mind of what's better for the people. Like, and just here's my money. You know, we need more people just to donate their money and sit back with no strings attached. That's what I would really like to see. Amanda said, Society intentionally has poor Black people living amongst each other, but neighborhoods that have more than 10% of Black people, last that I saw, are devalued. This goes back to the way they give and take away. This is partly contributes to the phenomenon on why Black homeowners do not want to live in neighborhoods that are predominantly Black. Yeah, because their homes ain't worth that much.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Until you're out.
number one ways to make the value of your home to go down is if you live around all the Black people. I have heard in other demographics in the United States that that's not true. I heard there are whole Black owned neighborhoods, predominantly Black owned neighborhoods that are able to retain their property value. I think the wealthiest Black community in America, I think, is over there in Maryland. It's a county over there. I used to know it offhand, man, but my memory is going a little bad. I don't
cousin would know.
I know it exists, and I know they speak very highly of Atlanta. And there's some places, other places down south that have whole Black owned communities that are able to retain their property and real estate value. So
in LA, it used to be Leimert Park, and it used to be Ladera Heights, and it used to be Baldwin Hills, but I'm not sure how Black they are anymore. Whenever we talk about improving neighborhoods and Black-owned neighborhoods, I always get worried with gentrification, because as soon as we get this tipping point of, oh, wow, we'll have more white people come in and our property values will go up, then the few that are left there, you're going to lose your house as well, because the property value goes up and the taxes. So that always worries me, that the solution to fixing our neighborhoods is usually gentrification.
Yeah, that's a whole different, you know what I'm saying, show on that. Because my theory is I think you can gentrify a neighborhood but still retain the Black residents, but they don't want to. I think you can. I really do think gentrification doesn't always have to mean removing the Black residents. But that's because gentrification works hand in hand with capitalism and racism. So a lot of times when you sanitize that community, you know what I'm saying, that means getting rid of the dirty Black people. You know what I mean? But so let's move to our last bit, you know, like we do at the end. We've been on here for an hour, and I want to wrap up and whatnot. What do you think that is? What's the plan of action here?
I think the plan of action is we just have to analyze and examine where we are. As I think we need to look at ourselves as an individual, and from that individual aspect, we have to see what we can do as a collective. Like, again, I think many of us, judging by the comments of what we said on here, we in between financial gain and mental health. So we need to examine ourselves, see where are we lacking at, or where we can improve in what aspect in our life, and we can focus on that. And that, like let's say I'm more focused on mental wellness, so my focus will be on that in the community. Like yours could be financial gain, so you could focus on that. So everyone could contribute collectively to those aspects of our community, and we can build from there. So
I like that. That's nice.
So I think that'll be the best option, because again, that is very true. Not everybody's in the same predicament or in the same place in life. So we have to figure out where we are, and that way, everybody putting something in the pot. I guess the better way to say it. So that's my sense on that.
That's nice. I like that. I like that. Hold on.
Oh wow.
The
I don't hear anything.
What you think, Trisha?
I think the key is that we talk a lot about being a collective, but we really have to navigate collectively in terms of solutions. So, for example, with mental health, working with each other collectively, because right now, if there aren't the resources, then we as a community need to be the resources for one another, and understanding and addressing the fact that we have unaddressed mental health issues that we can support one another on and not demonize one another. So I'd say collectivity and not demonizing one another. The same thing in terms of financial awareness and financial progress that we need to navigate collectively there. So thinking not in terms of ourselves as an individual, how much we can amass, but how we can encourage generational wealth building first in your family and then in your community. So that's also collectively, and the same even collectively in terms of what cultural literacy that we need to navigate together instead of capitalism or navigating like Europeans. We have to shift away from that individual thinking and more into the collective and acting that way.
Y'all, I'll go ahead and round it up real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go to cultural literacy part on this one. And embedded in that is just improving the culture of the people around you. Like, what is the culture when you're around your people? Is the culture of what's the culture of how you treat each other? And I think that will create, like I said, that rites of passage, and it will also create those value systems. And I think that a lot of us don't really just have the culture. And like I said, what Precious said, but that focus can change. It can. But I think you need to have a primary focus depending on where you're at. And I'm going to stick by that. It shouldn't be we're going to do all three at once. No, I think you should focus on one. And I think the focus should be in your household. What is the culture of your household? Because the cultural literacy of your household is going to create the value system, and it's going to dictate how you save money, how you create that mental health and that mental wellness. What does that look like? Creating mental wellness. Okay, so you might, have money and whatnot, and but does your mental wellness is it being supported in a safe place in your home? So, like, if you have all these ideas of what's going to help you be better, like mental health wise, if you don't have the safe place and the culture to do that, then it's not going to be possible. You don't have no way to activate it. So I think it changes for different people. And I think that when a collective of people come together and each one of us has a different focus, like Trisha's focus is mental wellness. Precious's focus is financial gain. And then my focus would be, cultural literacy. We all have different focuses, but we come together, for the benefit and the advantage of the group. And I think that's my plan of action, is that assign different focuses to different people in your circle. But you got to create that circle first and understand you can't do it by yourself. Or you can. You know what I'm saying?
But it's a lot longer, and it's going to be harder to do it.
It's going to take a lot longer, and probably you're going to the fruit that you bear is going to look a lot different than other trees. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, it's been good to be back. Let's get at them again next week. We got another. I want to really talk about the baby thing, man. And really talk about our relationship with law enforcement, because this brother done called the police on this sister, and based on code, I thought that was out, because brothers told me that you ain't supposed to call the police.
Oh yeah,
because I didn't heard brothers tell women that's the reason why black men are getting killed, because y'all calling the police on us too much. So I want to talk about that.
And that brings up that conversation we had. I said what I said, and a couple fellas was in their feelings because I said it, but I ain't taking it back because it's the truth.
Yep. All right, y'all. See y'all next time. We love y'all. Remember, inbox me if you guys want some complimentary gifts and whatnot. Check us out, C Talk. We're gonna rebroadcast this again. We love y'all. And
thanks, y'all.
We out. Peace.